the cities. Typical ranking. First tier cities, second tier cities, third tier cities. And the flow of candidates, obviously, is up this way. You can get people to go this way, but you're taking a huge risk. They'll go off to the factory in the third tier city, and they can't find a Starbucks, and they want to come back. Literally, it's just this is the perception that they have of themselves in the big cities, that they get a 9-to-5 job and so on. So the flow is generally that way. The solution for second tier cities is to look in other second tier cities and then down. So that means that your search for, let's say, Suzhou would cover all of the second and third tier cities all around China, if you're going to be able to solve this. The second interesting thing that's happening is that the factories, if this is China, the factories generally are on the east coast, the Gold Coast, right? And they're moving west right now. And that's fine, that's because it's too expensive to make ball bearings in Shanghai. Doesn't make sense. And those, let's say somebody that's producing something like a ball bearing, a very simple product, they're moving the factory west. And then when they move it west, they get lower salaries, but they lose all of the management and they lose all of the technical people. Because the technical people say, that's where I came from. I'm not going back there. Thank you. So I've actually seen companies where they've lost the entire management team because they tried to move the factory. And even moving the factory 50 miles out of Shanghai can be enough, because they will have to commute 50 miles every single day. For senior level people, it's not an issue. The general manager who runs vitamin C plants and so on, he knows that at his level there's only a certain number of vitamin C plants in China, and so he would probably have to, if he wants to move to a bigger plant, he'd probably have to move to a different province or whatever. So that's not such an issue. It's the middle level that's a problem, and then the technical people, chemists, application engineers, design engineers. Steve? Okay, so the question is, what's the difference between the multinational companies coming in and the local companies, and in the way that they compete against each other? The local companies are split into two types. One is the SOEs, the state-owned enterprise. They don't really compete because in many ways they're subsidized by the government. The real players are the local private companies. They have stayed under the radar for a long time. It's very hard for them to raise money, and they are focused 100% on cost. Cost. So if you look at factories in China, you'll see some factory outside Shanghai or somewhere that produces 12 billion of these per year, 100% focused on cost. In terms of the way that they hire and the way they reward people is also different. They tend to have lower salaries, but much bigger bonuses. And they often tend to rely a little bit on the nationalism, developing China, working for the company, working all together, you fit in better here, and so on. So they play the nationalist card, and they structure their system and their process all around cost. So they tend to be the cost leader in certain areas. So they'd be the biggest producer of woks, or the biggest producer of ball bearings or switchgear or something like that. Whether that model works forever, I don't think so. They're beginning to adopt more Western practice, and they're beginning to actually hire foreigners. Companies like Alibaba, the software companies, the local ones, have a lot of expatriates in there. But even the local telecom companies like Huawei and UT Starcom, they have foreigners now coming in and trying to bring in new ideas. Or else they bring back these returnees who have spent, banks will bring back somebody who spent 20 years on Wall Street to set up the guy who's the deputy, I think, of the stock exchange, actually spent 20 years on Wall Street. So that's it's kind of a typical dynamic situation in China. You're kind of here now, and you're heading towards here, and you're somewhere in between.